All right, folks. Puppy's World here once again. And I've got an interesting update for you. I've got a lot of things that are in the works soon to come, a lot of interesting videos. In fact, this evening I will be doing a much more professional style of video where you will be seeing me in person, talking about a few different products and differences and issues between the products and where to buy them and whatnot, on the topic of vinyl, on the topic of digital audio amplification, integrated amps versus receivers, and solid state stereos versus tube amplification, and a lot of things to come, folks. In fact, in the near future here, I'm going to be stepping things up a notch, so to speak, and actually performing purchases online that my viewers recommend to me as products, and then actually reviewing them as soon as I get them, and then from there choosing further products and reviewing them. So we'll be taking things up a notch. We got a lot of things in store for the new YouTube channel here, as I've only been in business for about 6, 7, 8 months. But we're definitely stepping things up a notch. So just want to explain to you what's going on here right now. I've got a number of different things happening, and this is just a video that I kind of wanted to rant on about and show you what is happening here for the time being. Mind you, I got the fan going right now, guys, because this heat here is pretty insane. It's almost 90 degrees with like over 100% humidity, it feels like. So thank God for forced air and built-in dehumidifiers. So otherwise we'd be cooking in here, and so would our electronics. Keep in mind, these kind of electronics hate moisture. They don't like heat, and they hate moisture. The heat sinks on these things gets so hot that when you add moisture into the mix, it's not a good deal. So just let me quickly talk about this. I will do a full video on this at some point, but I've been getting some questions on the topic or subject matter of what is the difference between an AV receiver like this, a multi-channel receiver surround sound type processor, and what is, an integrated amplifier, and what is preferred, separates, receiver, integrated amp, tube amp, what? Let me just quickly start by saying all of these components have, the same type of things inside of them. You got to have your power supply, whether that be a tridal transformer or regular transistors. It's got to have a power supply. You got to have capacitors. You got to have transistors of some sort, whether they be tubes or regular transistors. You can see capacitor in there, right there. That's the cap. And there's a few differences between these items. What is the difference between them? Well, not just the componentry inside, but that makes a big, big, big difference. Yes, this is a wonderful receiver. Absolutely perfect for doing all types of audio and video, processing. But what is better, in my opinion? I'm going to have to truly say, folks, that AV separates are better in my, opinion. Why is that? Well, there's several reasons, but the one main difference between AV separates and integrated amplifiers versus AV receivers is how they're built. And, some of them using, as you can see here, it's a built-in closed design. So it's using a Faraday cage type design. If you don't know that terminology, look it up online. I'll kind of just explain really quickly. A Faraday cage is something that is completely closed off for interference purposes. I have this sitting on top of the power amplifier right now, which technically is a no-no. You should not have a preamp usually sitting on top of the power amplifier for, well, one main reason. Specifically, there is an extremely oversized toroidal transformer in here. If I kind of lift this up and move it backwards, I'll kind of show you, you've seen it before, as I've kind of shown you. You can kind of see in there, which you can't. No, I'm sorry. It's a huge toroidal transformer in there, which Rotel has a great YouTube video on how they manufacture and build them in the factory. And a lot of companies, take a lot of pride in their transformers and how they build them. But with this closed design of this preamplifier, there's no speaker ports on this. So this is not an amplifier. This is just a preamplifier. So by doing the closed cage design on here, you're eliminating any chance of interference, which is nice. However, should not have it sitting on top of this Emotiva. Why? Well, you got it right there. These are vents. Heat sinks inside there create a lot of heat, and those transistors heat up a lot. And well, as I said before, amplifiers, heat is their worst enemy. So to heat these guys up and have something sitting on top of it is not a good idea. However, I just have this placed here for, a couple of days' time as I listen very, very quietly to some vinyl music. So that, it's not a problem right now. However, if I were to keep this like this for years, I would not recommend it. Okay, let's just quickly go over, though, what is the difference between an AV receiver and an integrated amp, and then I'll talk about the separates really quickly. And then I'll go back into the other room, and I'll show you my hookup. As I hook things up, I'll run through some of the products. I talked in my last video before about I was going to do Vodka, AudioQuest, HDMIs, so bought a brand new set of these guys. I already took the little plastic covers off of them. Here are the Vodkas. It offers about 10% silver content, as opposed to the carbons, which I'm running at home usually. But I believe the carbons have about 5% silver content in them. I could be wrong, though. And then the chocolates maybe have like 2%, but there is a difference. So I'll move on, though. Okay, as I said, what's the difference between an integrated amplifier and an AV receiver first to start? An AV receiver has minimum of 3 things inside of it. It's got your amplifier, your preamplifier, and probably a tuner, if not more than that in there. So minimum 3 things, though. Definitely at least the 2, preamplifier and amplifier, inside an AV receiver. By putting those things together, it makes it kind of difficult to achieve the best possible sound quality in the world. It just does. There's no way to fit all the componentry into one thing and to separate them inside the chassis so, eloquently that you're actually eliminating 100% complete interference. There's always a possibility of interference unless you're doing a Faraday closed cage design like this, which can't be done with any amplifier inside of it. You need vents so those heat sinks can breathe. So that is what an integrated amplifier has, well, normally just the preamplifier and amplifier in it. The surround sound receiver, or AV processor, is going to have preamplifier, amplifier, and tuner, and then multiple more inputs on it. So, is an integrated amplifier better for music than an AV receiver? I'm going to say yes, guys. I am honestly going to say if we were to put the Marantz SR7011 or Marantz SR7010 or even the NR1606, which I own, in this room, and compare them to just my Parasound preamp here, my Emotiva power amplifier, we'd notice a big difference in terms of power, sound quality, but mainly power. They just aren't capable of the same functions that these are. However, there's no input, there's no control on this guy whatsoever. So something like this is just your power amplifier. No inputs, but that eliminates the possibility of interference between componentry inside of that. Now, third thing I said I'd talk about was AV separates. These are technically considered AV separates because you've got a preamplifier right here, a power amplifier right here, and what is this guy? Well, he is a phono preamplifier. The whole point in going with a phono preamplifier, guys, is, and I've talked about this before, is the fact that I have a few stereos, and especially some older stereos and some newer digital stereos, all solid state, of course, that do not have phono inputs on them. They can run any analog input like this, no problem, with a 3.5 and some RCAs, no problem at all. However, using a stereo amplifier, any AV receiver that does not have a phono input, and believe you me, guys, the NR1606 from Marantz, and if I'm not mistaken, all of the slimline AV receivers from Marantz do not boast a phono preamplifier in them. Hence, they have no phono input on them. In which case, absolutely, there's an absolute need for a phono preamplifier then. A phono preamplifier is taking your signal from your turntable, usually most likely grounding it as well, and then attuning that into a line level input, coming out RCA-wise, and allowing you to go into any stereo amplifier or preamplifier just with the regular RCA line level input. There's no need for a phono input. I will be purchasing the Parasound phono preamplifier, of course. It looks identical to this guy. It's got no volume control on him, though. He's just got a phono input on him. He does moving magnet, moving coil. There's a switch behind him for that. So there's a different, that's the point, or the necessity in having a phono preamplifier, is the possibility of then taking your turntable and connecting it to any stereo or power amplifier that doesn't necessarily have a phono input. And then, I'll quickly touch on AV separates. As I said before, these are AV separates. You got your preamp, your phono preamp here, your preamplifier here with 4 different inputs, and video this will do. Analog, of course, though, which I prefer. And then we got our power amplifier here, which our speakers come out of. So no need for any visual or video processing here. There's no video in this room. I don't want any video in this room. I wanted this to be the best kind of sound quality I could here. So I'm just running those things, guys. Hence the reason I had to bring those guys with me. We drove up here, by the way, not flew. So, yeah, I was able to bring a few equipment with me. Well, I'm glad I did. Okay. Not sure if you saw my last video, but if you remember correctly, I talked about how I'd show you a few different products, and I'd go through and pick out a few different things, including power cables. So I showed you what power cable I was going to go with as opposed to the factory supplied from Marantz. And I'll show you my little box of things yet to be installed and built up here. But of course I'm going with this guy to do my SR7010 to power him for the time being. So we've got this guy here, but then it's time to choose speaker cables. After, of course, you've chosen your speakers. Contrary to, what people would like me to do, I'm sure they'd love me to put SVS Prime towers in here, as you saw in the other room, and I will, of course. Those are the best speakers for music and movies alike, believe it or not. Those are the best things I can come up with here, especially at that price range. Also, mind you, yes, believe it or not, I actually took my Whole House Enhanced DVR cable box from home and brought it over here as opposed to using the regular cable box that we've had here, the Samsung cable box. This is no DVR. This is just regular basic cable that's, hooked up here. But believe it or not, you bring the cable box that has all your HBO, Cinemax, Showtime on there, and your DVR capabilities, all your channels and all that. It's determined inside the cable box. So we're able to get all that here. That's why there's another cable box in here, just in case you're wondering. But yeah, for speakers right now, guys, I've got the projection set up here, waiting to exist, a screen and all that. Of course, I've got the little projector here. We'll go with an Epson soon, probably with a fixed frame, though. However, I'm going to go with some KEF Q100 OmniQ bookshelf speakers. I'm going with those because, well, they're extremely compact, and they're bi-wireable and bi-ampable. So doing that in a smaller room like this, I know it doesn't have an open sound stage right here, so the sound will all leak out. But I'm going to go with some KEF bookshelf speakers at first in here on those stands. Of course, I'll clean them all up and stuff and whatnot, clean the whole room up and go from there. But we'll add our surrounds and our Atmos and DTSX speakers after that, soon to come. However, after we've picked our speakers, we've placed them where they want to be, of course. We haven't yet, though, really. I got to pick speaker cables. And I mentioned they're bi-wire, bi-ampable. So our options would be to go with an easy, basic setup of using these Type 4s. And that'd be no problem using a bunch of them. However, you'd need 4 of them just for your front stereo hookups alone. I almost use these in every room that I have, and at home, believe it or not, guys, I've got 5 different rooms with surround sound in it, and stereo hookups. So these are quite common in my house. However, I decided to go with these for the main bass hookups on the back, and then I'm just going to go with another type of Audio Quest. Of course, I banana plugged them with Monster, I know, but a total different type of Audio Quest speaker wire. I believe this is Type 2. I'm not even sure. X2, I'm sorry. X2 speaker cable. It is directional, but if you look at the end here, these are extremely well thought out designed speaker cables. With the copper just in extremely good shape right now. They don't tend to corrode over time or tarnish in any way. So these will be no problem going with these to the tweeter hookups, or specifically with the KEF's It's more or less an omni-Q design, so all the woofer is tight, in one specifically, but they are biampable, biwireable, so high frequency, low frequency. Doesn't matter either or, but that's what I'm choosing. Just to give you an idea of what they look like, or the other stuff that I could use. Got another power cable here, guys. I'll use that in the future. And also, here's a few things I wanted to have you take a peek at. I've got my bag here with a few items that I brought with me, of course. I'm obsessed with all the sound equipment, yes. Going to be using a Logitech universal remote here, so that'll be no problem. For analog inputs, I'll go with a Golden Gate from AudioQuest. We'll go with just a generic Cat 6 Ethernet cable for hooking up things that don't have a wireless hookup to them. But we've also got another type of speaker cable here. I've got chocolate HDMI, if you can tell what this is right here. I'll pull that guy out for you so you can see him. Here he is capped off. Chocolate HDMI. I can compare them in another video to the vodka, as I need to do soon. I still need to do a whole video on HDMI cables and kind of demything the need to buy 2.1 in the future, which I've already done an explanatory video on that. But here's some other speaker cable from AudioQuest. I've shown in my other videos, of course, Type 2.1 speaker cable. It is directional, of course. But this is a favorite of mine as well. No banana plugs on the end of these, but they're solid long grain copper with a quad helix and all that. But they're a spread spectrum hyperlets, directional. And the end of them is definitely doable for biamping and biwiring. There are 4 ends, and I've just clipped these with a wire cutter at some point here. But if you notice, you've seen in my other videos, there's 2 reds and 2 blacks, so 2 powers and 2 grounds here. So perfect for biwiring, biamping, and using just one simple cable. We're probably going to use this in a different setup at some point. If we decide to biwire, biamp any centers or surrounds, we'll be going with these. So, I wanted to just quickly touch upon subwoofer cables really quick as well. This is probably the cheapest subwoofer cable I own at this point. It's got to be an Acoustic Research if I had to take a... Yes, it is. It's an Acoustic Research, as you can see right here. And it is somewhat, gold-plated, so to speak. I'm sure it's not real gold at all. But, so this is kind of the cheapest subwoofer cable I can come up with. And I'm not going to use this for anything other than like the bedroom setup with a little cheap Valadyne subwoofer. If I was going to go with an SVS, which I will at some point here, believe it or not, and I'll show you that guy soon, I'm going to use a different speaker cable. Or, I mean, not speaker cable, subwoofer cable. And the subwoofer cable I'm going to end up going with is going to be the Boxer cable from AudioQuest. I don't see it in here right now, so let me try to find that. So here is, excuse me, the Boxer cable from AudioQuest. I wonder if it says, yeah, it says Boxer on there. Directional, of course, too, and it's got 2 ground capabilities on it. A little spade connection right there. So, this is a wonderful cable. Obviously, it's a little bit different than an Acoustic Research. There's no need to gold plate this guy, of course. But, yeah, he's a wonderful cable, and I have no problem going with him as opposed to my older AudioQuest cable that is more or less braided with like blue and red in it. And yeah, he makes a tremendous improvement in subwoofer sound. So I recommend going with a more expensive subwoofer cable, but I will get to hooking these things up, guys. I'll get to placing my speakers up, connecting the connections into my receiver, and then after that we'll go with just a generic setup in here with wires kind of ran across the floor and things not looking very pretty. And I'll show you how to take your setup from looking like crap to looking aesthetically pleasing. So, thank you for watching. I've given you a preview as to what we'll be seeing soon. You'll be seeing a lot of new videos. Thank you for watching.